Morning, everyone. Yeah, very good morning. Shall we begin the session? Hey, Joseph, you're online today. How are you, Joseph? I'm also fine, Joseph. What about you, Joseph? You're also good, Joseph. All right, Joseph. So, shall we start the session, Joseph? Okay. So, today's topic is the revision of the quality system in IT. That is, origins, participations, applications of the ISO 9000 standard. That is, what is the role of the ISO 9000 standard? What is the origin, or how, or from where it is originated? What are the various applications of ISO 9000? So, first one is the role of the ISO 9000 standard. So, what is the ISO 9000 standard? That is a role. Now, this is a series of three international standards for the quality management system. So when we talk about the ISO 9000 2000, it is a series or it is a combination of three international standards for the quality management system. And they also specify the requirements and the recommendation for the design and the assessment of the management system. And this is not a product standard, but it is used with the requirements with which a product or the quality or service can comply. And there are no product, there are no service, there is no equality that is acceptance criteria, in which ISO 9000 you can't inspect a product against a standard. Without ISO 9000 you can't expect the product, you can't get the products. Now, what is the main purpose of ISO 9000? That means why we are using the ISO. That is it provides assistance to the organizations of all types to implement the data, to implement the criteria. That is how it is used, why it is used, why it is so developed. And these standards also provides a vehicle for implementing, consolidating, and communicating the concepts in the field of quality management that have been approved by an international committee of the representatives from national standard bodies, and it is not their purpose to fuel the certification, consulting, training, publishing the industry, but the primary users of the standards also intended to be the organizations acting as either the programmer, either the suppliers, or either the stakeholders. Now, what is the ISO 9000 family of the standard? What is two? One is the ISO 9000, that is the quality management system. This is the fundamental and the vocabulary. Then quality management system, that is the requirements. Then ISO 9004, that is the guidelines for the performance improvement. How to improve the performance? What are the various guidelines that we follow up for the performance improvement, or why we are, or how we are getting the performance improvement? That is the guidelines for the performance improvement. Now, these are the various types. Now, next question arises, what is the main purpose of these standards? Why we are using these standards? Or how beneficial it is used for the organization? The main purpose is to provide an appreciation of the fundamental purpose or the fundamental principle, and each and every organization is getting benefited from this ISO 9001 or 9000 to 9004 standards that provides a family of the standards. And this also defines that states that the standards can be used to assess the organization ability. Whether the organization is good or bad, so it is used to assess the organization's ability to meet the customer, regulatory, and the organization's own requirement. So that means organization ability to meet the customer, rules regulation, that is regulatory, and the organization on requirement. And the main purpose of ISO 9004 is to provide guidance for improving the efficiency, effectiveness, and the overall performance of an organization, that is you. And there are two parts of this. One is ISO 9001 and ISO 9004 that have been developed as a consistent pair of the standards that complement each other. Complement each other means that carried out with each other, and they have a common structure but can also be used independently. And this is not intended as a guide to ISO 9001, although this is used, or this includes the requirement of the ISO 9001 standard that is available, and that does not provide, or that does not contain an explanation of these requirements or guidance in meeting them. Now, now the next question arises, why should we need to use these standards? We are talking about, or we are talking about what are the various advantages. So why there is a need to use these standards in our organization, or why organizations use these standards? So it is imperative that all three standards are studied for the following purpose, for the following reasons. The first one is this contains the definition of the terms used in the family of the standards, so whatever the family of the standards, whatever the data that is acquired, so that is used with the family of standard, and without an understanding, or without that deals with the various concepts, that deals with the various principles that used the requirement, context, interpretation, and the requirements of that will be understood without the participation, without the appreciation of the concepts that were teams or that underpin the requirements. And this also required for the quality management system. So ISO 9000 standard, that is a standard that is also used for the quality management system. This standard should be used in contextual situations and where the customer requires its suppliers to demonstrate that they have a capability to consistently produce what they need or what they require, that is the product that meets the customer satisfaction, customer requirements. An organization can also use ISO 9001 as a model in designing their management systems that provides that they also use that ISO 9000 and ISO 9004 standards. This helps in guidance on developing and improving a quality management system. So in overall, when we say that ISO, what is the use of ISO 9000 or 9001 standards that provides a guidance in developing and improving a quality management system. There is no doubt if an organization were to follow the guidance under the ISO 9004, 1 or 0, it would have no problem in demonstrating that it have an effective management system. Now, next is why was ISO 9000 created? So what is the main reason behind the creation of the ISO 9000 standards? Those standards were created to facilitate the mutual understanding of the quality management system requirements in the national and the international trade. So it is used at both the levels, on the level that is the national level or the international level. The associated certification schemes that are not a requirement of any of the standards family that were launched to reduce the cost of customer-sponsored audit that is performed to verify the capability of the suppliers, what is the supplier, how it is going to reduce the customer satisfaction, and the schemes were born out of a reticence of a customer to trade within the organization that has no constraint, that has no credential in the marketplace. So ISO 9000 have no credential in the marketplace that is used with the or within the organization for the trading purpose. So that standard will be maintained for such situation when there are no potential for the organization that is not followed with the customer, supplier, that was a contractual relationship. And it was not intended for use where there was no contractual relationship. And the customer may not have any way of knowing that the product or the service meet the agreed requirement until it put into the service, by which time it is costly in time, resources and reputation to make the corrections. And it is also one of the questions that one question arises: are the consequences of the failures that we need the supplier to demonstrate it as a capability to meet our requirements, or do we have a sufficient confidence that we are willing to compensate for any problem that might arise? So these are the various questions, and the answer of these questions will be provided by the ISO 9000 standard, because this is one of the standard that contains the rules, regulation, policies. Yes, that comprises automatically rules regulation that is defined by the ISO 9000. So when there are some rules, regulations, possibilities, legal issues, legal requirement, whatever the data that is required, so that is very much compensation for any problem that may arise or that might arise for the solutions. In many of the cases, using the ISO 9000 as a contractual requirement was like using a one of the, we can say, the policies that is necessary or unnecessary and much simpler model that should be used. Now, what does ISO 9000 apply to? Means it is applied to which organization? So the answer is it is applied to any of the organization, to all the organization, regardless of their type, regardless of their size and the product provided. There's no that the big organization have ISO 9000 standard. No, any of the organization, whether that is a medium size, small size, huge size, that may be private, public, that may be a product driven companies, that is also covered under the ISO if there's a requirements. But when we talk about the ISO 994 version that were particularly focused on the manufacturing sectors, and they are the standards that apply to the management of an organization, and only the management can and should decide how it will respond to these standards and the recommendation. Then next is origin of the ISO 9000. So that is the story of the standards, methods, and the regulations. And the brief history that follows is in no way comprehensive. That is intended to illustrate the four things. What are the four things that is available? Now the standards are an ancient concept that survived the several millennia. Then there is a means of verify the compliance that offers follow the setting of these standards that formalizing or that formulate the working practices, and that also maintains the regulations, the standard of the goods or services that has been around for the centuries for the protection of both craftsmen and the traders. Next is 3000 BC, that is also arrived when there is the underpin ISO 9000 were first derived. Now these are the various centuries, that is how it is used over here. This is the end-to-end process. One is the interested party. This goes to the process A, then goes to the process B, then goes to the process C, and last go to the interested party that needs is satisfied. So one is a need that arises, then goes to the different processes, process A, process B, process C, and at last the interested needs or interested party needs is satisfied. There are stakeholders at the either end of the processes. That means there are different processes by which we can access the material, process A, process B, and the process C. Now, change in the content. So the content had changed from 20 elements organized on the basis of the what could be or what could go wrong to 4 elements for 4 groups of the requirement that focus on the elements of the focus management or the process management. Now change in the intent, that is also indentation is also used, damage is also used, requirements are also taken out of the context, taken in the isolation. Then organization design, manage their processes, choose the right thing to do, develop the materials, environment, then change the language in terms of the subcontractor, customer, effective management, specified requirements, procedure that have been changed to the processes that presented in the way that produces or that makes the procedure only one element of managing an effective process. Now, what are the various requirements that is changed out? Now, next topic is what are the various issues that arises if there is any change in the requirement. So, ISO still contains 136 statement to are less than the 1994 version. So, in all respect, it is not different. So, there are roughly 323 requirements in the ISO 9001 1994 standard that is used, and there are roughly 250 requirement that is still, or this is still too many, especially if you are trying to get across the fundamental requirements of the standards. Now there are basic requirements that we can see. So what are the very basic requirement that is going on? So if the ISO 9001 were to be resolved into a single requirement, it would be praised or it would be used along the following lines, and the organization shall determine that what it needs to do to satisfy the customers, establish a system to accomplish the objectives and the measures, and also review and continually improve its performance. That is the basic requirement. Next is general requirement. Determine the needs and the expectations of the customer. What are the various needs and the expectations of the customer that is going on, and what are the various interested parties that is required with this. Then next is establishing the policies, worksheet, or we can say the objectives and the work environment that is necessary to motivate the organization to satisfy these needs, and design, resource, and manage a system of interconnected processes. What are the various interconnected processes that is going on that is necessary to implement the policy and attain the objectives. Then measure and analyze the adequacy, efficiency, and effectiveness of each and every process in fulfilling the targets, in fulfilling the objects, purpose, and also the objectives. The next is the key changes. What are the various key changes? So there are many changes in ISO 9001. Some phrases from the 1994 versions have been retained, although only the 17 instances could be found. And in a great many cases, the wordings has changed, but not the intent. And in the case of the majority of the cases, the wording represents a new requirement that is often used as a topic or the new topic that not only addressed in the ISO 9000 or 1994 version, but also modifications of the previous requirement that extends the scope of the applications. And one of the new requirements that is following up the list that present that are consolidated key to understanding the differences. What are the various keys that is used for understand the differences, how the differences are carried out, what are the various keys that is resolved or that is used to resolve these differences if any differences arises. One is the audit, that is the audit of the management system design, process and the conformity that is used with the ISO 9001, no longer time period or limited to the procedure audit. The next one is the communication. Now, there's a communication or the processes for the internal communication, for the internal data, for the internal material rather than the system documentation. Then continual improvement, so effectiveness of the management system to be continually improved, not will be reviewed. Then contract review, this is replaced by the wide-ranging review of all the policy requirements, including the customers, including the organizationals and the regulatory requirements. No longer limited to the contract and the tenders. And the standards have been moved away from the original intention of being used in a contractual situation to one in which there might be no contract until after a product or the service has been developed. The next is the customer satisfaction, that is used with the customer perception, that is used with the customer monitoring, that is used as one of the measures of the management system performance. And if one of the organization designs to its own product and services, then design and development also must be included in the management system. The documentations, linkages, management review, marketing, measurement, procedures, processes. Each and every process that also serves as the achievement of the organization objective to comprise a management system that is no longer required or no longer limited to the production, installation and the service. Then quality management system, that is a QMS, that is also used with the organization process, note the elements and the clauses of the standards. Then quality manual, that is need to describe the interaction between the processes, that is not to be a response to each and every clause of the standards. The next is a quality objective. What is a quality objective? That is separate from the policy but consistent with it and also established at relevant levels and the function, that is the drivers that is used in the performance, that is used with the continual performance. Then quality policy. This is the quality manual, quality objective, quality policy, records. That is evidences of the effective operations that is used with all types of record, not simply those refers to the quality records. Requirement, system effectiveness, top management, mid-level management and the low-level management. Now, next is there is a tremendous impact from these, that is differences along with this one. Now, picking out the new clauses that illustrate this even further. Now, first is general requirements on the process management. What are the various general requirements that is used on the process management? The next one is a customer focus, then quality objectives, quality management system planning, internal communication, infra. Hello. So next one is the customer satisfaction, customer communication, monitoring and the measurement of the processes, analysis of the data, continual improvement. So these are the various points that is further used as a clause that illustrate what are the various differences that is used in the ongoing process, that is used in the incoming processes. The next one is the impact, that is also one of the considerable impact on the organization, that only affects the organization, that only weighs how it is using the organization effects. That is a badge on the wall. The next one is the impact, that is what is the main impact of the ISO 9000 or the ISO 9001 standard. These requirements have a considerable impact on the organization, that is used as a badge on the wall, that means getting the recognition about doing without changing the anything. Now we have done this one, customer satisfaction, customer surveying. Now next part is quality management system that I'm going to discuss within the next class, that is in the tomorrow's class.